Check 1, 2, 3, 4. Check 1, 2, 3. Okay, hold on. I'm gonna have to send you a new link.
It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. A beautiful day in the neighborhood. Would you be mine? Could you be mine? Would you be my neighbor? That is, if you pick up the trash and you keep up your house, would you be my neighbor? That right there. Share now. Death and dying. Hey, everybody. You don't say happy Good Friday, but Good Friday. Um, I know that there are celebrations all over. And those of you who listen to this show, I believe at noon, at 1 o'clock today? Oh, yes, noon. No. At 1 o'clock is the Seven Last Words sponsored by the radio show. And so we want you to hang around for that. It's always powerful. I'm not sure who's on the lineup this year, but they do a great job in lining them up and knocking them down. So I want to start the show off first of all with condolences to the Eve family.
Yes.
Connie. So when I got the call that Connie Eve passed, I don't know why at first you just don't believe it, although they're age, they've
Right.
lived well,
Yep.
older. There's just certain people you just never expect to leave. You just be like,
He'll live forever.
She'll outlive me. But Connie Eve, for those who would only be young people, the listeners to this show. Hey, Mark, can you get me on over here?
Oh, sure.
The listeners to this show will know Connie Eve, and I just want to give all kinds of respect to the Eve family, to Connie Eve for her work. Before building affordable housing was popular, she was already doing it. I think it's called Dignity Circle. I'll never forget. She'd be on the radio every week. I'm not sure which day, but she had a talk show. She had all these guests on. I mean, she was like the queen of talk radio, active in our community, especially when it came to women's rights, to women who found themselves in struggling time, women who found themselves addicted, dealing with addictions. Connie Eve was the champion. And I cannot start this show without saying we appreciate her life, appreciate her family. Our family obviously is still active in not only in politics but in governance, and so our hearts will forever miss Connie Eve. So we dedicate today's show. Part of what we're actually talking about today is I don't know. We got a feed on this one on the Facebook one. Is death and dying. I'm going to have several guests on today. Now, don't turn off the radio. I'm going to have several guests on today because there's some things you need to know in advance about death and dying, especially about insurance and what a lot of people think, and I'm going to ask the professionals, that when a person dies, like you can just find their insurance information, all their insurance information by their social security number. And I'm not sure that that's true, but I'm going to ask the experts, because what we're having here lately, and we actually had to come up with a policy at the church, is a lot of requests for money when people pass. A lot of requests. I don't think a week goes by that we don't have just people who've never even been here saying, hey, somebody said y'all help to pay for a funeral, and we can't. But at the end of the day, the question, and what I want to have some real conversation with, this why I don't want you to turn off the radio when we start talking about this, because this is important, about what policy, what some communities use life insurance policies for, and what we use life insurance for, and that difference. And the fact that some see it as a wealth builder, depending on what kind of policy you have. And then we're going to talk, first we're going to talk in a few minutes to one of the sponsors of the show to talk about not just pre-need, because this isn't I don't want to talk about it like I'm advertising for somebody. I really want to give knowledge on this show. I have one grandmother that we did pre-need, another grandmother we didn't, and we just paid. But the importance of that, and how doing things in advance can actually save your family money. And we're going to talk a little bit about that, and especially as we look at, the aging of Buffalo.
Yes.
And there's not a week. There is not 1 week. Duncan, welcome to the show. I'm surprised you're in town. You have been all over the place, and congratulations on the TED Talk.
Well, thank you. It's an honor to be here. Yeah, I'm in town. This is my kid's spring break, so my son is in town, and we've just been doing family stuff, hanging out a lot this week. And
yeah.
So, yeah.
Tell us about TED Talk, how you got TED Talk.
Yeah, so it was actually my third time trying to do a TED Talk, a TEDx Talk. I tried in Buffalo a few years ago. They denied me, rejected me. I tried for Detroit a couple years ago. They denied me. And then this time, they accepted, my application and everything. And I'm actually grateful for that process, because if I had got it 3 years ago or 2 years ago, my talk wouldn't be as good. I wouldn't be as polished.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have the foundation, because once you do a TEDx, instantly you get more bookings, you get more calls, people want you to consult, all of that. I have a foundation to manage all that now, and a booking agent and all of that. So it's like God's timing was perfect for me.
It always is.
And it was hard. TED Talk is hard, because when I'm doing normal, people are like, oh, you're a speaker, it's easy.
Yeah.
Well, when I go give a speech, or just say if you preaching,
right,
just say you forget something.
Yeah.
You just keep going. You know what I'm saying? Or somebody jump up. You could just interact with them, and it's all good.
Right.
At a TED Talk, you need to give the speech exactly as you wrote it. 15 minutes of perfect word for word what you wrote. That is tough. Do you know what I mean?
Can somebody go and look at it? Where is it at?
So they haven't published it yet. So
Okay.
they recorded on this past Thursday,
Okay.
and on opening night. And so it'll probably take a couple of weeks for them to edit it and get it all ready for us to put out. But once it's out, I'll share it with Mark, share it with you. I'm going to share it with everybody.
Yeah, and we're going to play it. I want to play it. It's 15 minutes, and you did it on what topic?
I did it on resilience.
Of course.
But I tried, like, people always think resilience is just getting over setbacks, getting over hard times. And it is in a lot of ways, but there's other layers. So in my talk, I talked about resilience from the perspective of redefine failure. So relook at a failure. So for me, I use the example of losing the election. I had to redefine that failure, actually learned a lot, met incredible people, got closer with my family. Like, a lot came from that.
Yeah.
Then you have to rethink this moment, which means be present. Like, here's the moment I'm in my journey. How can I be great in this moment? And then finally rediscover our true self, which is overcoming our ego to realize who we are is not connected to the results of the things we try, or our titles, or our roles. So that was kind of the gist of it.
So here's the question before we go to the topic. Did you miss any part that you wrote?
I messed up twice.
I love it. I love it.
The only person who knew for sure was my speaker coach and my wife.
Yeah.
And I mean, the one time I cheated.
Okay.
So I messed up and I was like, I just drew a total blank, but I just advanced my slide. So the next slide told me what was coming next, but it didn't look like it was a mess up.
So you had like a teleprompter?
No, we
So
had
what do
like
you
we
mean
had a
advance the
monitor. We had a
slide?
monitor that we could have slides. But in
Okay.
a TED Talk, your slides are like very little information, one line or a
So
graphic.
it's like
or,
on the sermon when I'm doing the sermon, just
yeah,
something to
just
let you know the area.
Exactly, just
Okay.
something to help with the learning.
Okay.
So it's not like a series of information or like a agenda. It's just like I had 9 slides. You know,
Okay.
so the first time I just advanced the slide and I was like, oh yeah, now I'm good, right?
Uh-huh.
The second time I took this, I just pretended like I was being dramatic. I just was like, man, presence is just so important. And then I was like, oh, okay, I remember now. Now I got back into it.
I cannot wait to see it. And that's the same thing that happens in the preaching moment. You get stuck somewhere and it's like, psh, you better dive all the way in.
Yes.
Don't get out of the water now. They with you and you forget the line.
You just keep repeating that one point.
That is why. That's why I cannot. I cannot use the computer. You know, like some pastors, they use it. I can use it on Thursday night because I got time to feel my way through it, look, move. But on Sunday morning, especially here where things are moving so fast, man, if that thing go out, I'm out there. I'm out there. When I say I'm out there, I'm out there. But you just dig in. So congratulations. Thanks for sharing that because I think when I watch those TED Talks, I'm always thinking, did that person remember that whole thing? And they're also powerful.
No, and they have a trick they use when they're filming. So what they tell you to do is if you mess up or if you say something wrong or if you totally forget, just pause.
Yes, because
And
they
then
can cut
say
it.
it again.
Yes.
Okay.
So if I say, and Pastor Pridgeon, blah, 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 and then Mark's, ooh, and I just kind of mix up, they just say, take a breath and just restart the sentence.
But you're in front of a live audience.
Correct. But when you watch the filming,
You
if
won't
I
see
just
it.
pause and restate it, they just chop out the messed up
Right.
version, and then now they can just make it look like it's flowing perfect.
Yeah.
So when you're watching it, you don't see that people actually have repeated themselves a bunch of times
Yeah,
or
yeah.
stopped and start. But the live audience, they just looking at you.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? That's a lot of pressure. So like it was tough.
How
but,
many people in the audience?
So we did 3 nights, and each night was sold out. So maybe like 100-something people each
You
night.
spoke each night?
Yeah, we did it 3 nights.
So you did the same talk 3 nights?
Yep. And
So
I wish they would have filmed Saturday, because Saturday, by that time, I killed it. But
that's like Sunday morning.
Yeah, by
You come
Swan
to
Street.
8:30. By Swan, I know the sermon perfectly
absolutely.
backwards and forward. I really got to look down. Matter of fact, Ty said the other day, he said, what about, do you want me to make this back TV into like a teleprompter? And I'm like, nah, Ty. I said, because sometime I'll cut across the field,
Yeah.
and then I got to figure out where that is on the thing.
Oh, yeah, no.
Because at 8:30, I'm looking down at the notes more. At 10 o'clock, I'm up now.
Yeah.
I'm here. But 11 o'clock, I'm up here now.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm up here. I thank you for sharing that. Death and dying is our topic for today. Like I said earlier, is that me? Yep. Okay. Let me see how to answer. I think I got. Hey, Brian. Let me see. Hold on. Brian, can you hear me? I can hear you perfectly fine. All right, we're gonna get you on in 1 second. You called right on time. I've got. We're talking about death and dying, and there's some myths out there that I think people do not know. Brian, I know, and thank you for sponsoring the show all of these years. I want to start with this about insurance and the thought that when a person dies, that the undertaker has some type of database he can look and find out what type of insurance. Is that true?
Absolutely not. First of all, I want to say thank you, Reverend, for having me on your show on this afternoon. But to answer your question, absolutely not. Undertakers cannot and do not have a database. Now, sometimes we can figure out, for example, if a gentleman works for General Motors, we automatically know it's MetLife. But say if you work at Pillsbury or the local cleaners or things of that nature, we cannot find out where his or her insurance is located at.
So have you found that a lot of families are searching for insurance policies when they call you?
Well, sir, the younger generations, yes. The older generations, not so much. Usually people in their 60s, late 60s, early 70s have their burial plans laid out. Little old church ladies usually have their stuff laid out as far as insurance is concerned, what color hat they want to have on, what
Wow.
color dress, what color casket, things of that nature. But the younger generation, totally unprepared.
Is the younger generation, are you finding, do they have insurance? Are they carrying largely, are they carrying life insurance?
80% no.
Wow. Wow. So 80% no, and then families have to find this money to bury a loved one.
Exactly, yes.
Has that always been the trend?
A lot of the older grandmothers and grandfathers would have insurance on their children and their grandchildren sometime even. But when that older generation passes on, the insurance would lapse, no one would keep it up, and it would basically falter. There would be no insurance for the younger generation.
So in the past, and I'm a grandfather, so like a grandparent would get insurance for their grandchild?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
Wow, because I've never done that. So that's interesting.
I will say, so when my grandmother passed in 2003, she had insurance on everyone except herself.
But did the people keep it up?
Yeah, no, she because she took care of the bills, so she paid for everyone's premium, but never had one on herself. So she passed first. So then we were all scrambling for money, but then we found out she had a policy on all of us.
Right, but
Yes, exactly.
Go ahead, Brian. So you seeing that more and more, or you seeing it less and less? I mean,
I'm seeing it less and less now because the older generation, that late 65, 70, 75, 80-year-olds, they're passing on. And so the grandparents now are much younger. They're in their 30s and 40 years old. So they don't have insurance on their children and grandchildren. It's the older set that had that.
so does that then delay some of the funerals from occurring because of a lack of insurance?
It does. It does, unless a family can come up with cash or some other means, credit cards or checks, things of that nature. Sometimes it delays the funeral or it changes the dynamic of the funeral itself versus, say, going for a full service with burial, it may go to service with cremation.
So, in the business right now, and when we talk about death and dying, and at the 12:30 hour, I have an insurance agent. We're going to talk about some of the myths about insurance. But in death and dying, what are you seeing right now as the major problem, especially among African Americans, brown skinned people, when it comes to funerals?
Unpreparedness and no insurance.
Do you have a lot of people doing pre-need like I did with my grandmother with you?
Older, 55, 60, 70, sometimes 80 years old, making pre-arrangement. Younger people under 30, absolutely not.
So you don't have any, and 30-year-old, you ain't thinking about dying. You ain't thinking about going anywhere. You get to my age, you start thinking about it. When somebody locks in a pre-arrangement with you, can that price change if they die 5 years from now and now everything costs more?
It all depends on how the contract is written. For example, if you do it through Medicaid, a person that's going, say, into a nursing home or into an assisted living situation, generally speaking, those are locked in pretty much forever.
Okay.
With the exception of, say, the cemetery. Say when somebody wants to have a service and burial, they're applying for Medicaid to go into a nursing home. They own a grave, say, at one of the local cemeteries, and the opening and closing has not been prepaid. So what we would do is, if they're paying with insurance, if they're paying with cash, we would escrow the money for the funeral home side. We can lock that in indefinitely. We have to when it comes on to Medicaid.
Okay.
But if it's not for Medicaid, then and the person comes to me and they're 40 years old making a pre-arrangement, I wouldn't guarantee that for 30 or 40 years because in 10, 20 years, things may be 20% higher, 30% higher. And also the cemetery, I can't lock in the price because they change.
Well,
that's called a cash advance.
I purchased my mausoleum in advance. It's paid off. And that won't change. It's like real estate. I own that. I could actually sell it if I wanted to. And now of what the mausoleums cost compared to what I got, I don't know, almost 10 years ago, there's no way I'd be able to afford it. It's a lot more. So that type of thing locks
Probably
in,
double.
right? Probably double. Oh, I'm quite sure. So that price doesn't change. But if you prepay for a plot, that price doesn't change either, right?
Correct.
So your plot, but the opening and closing does.
Opening and closing goes every year, year and a half or so, about maybe 4 to 5%.
If you had to give a person, a family right now, or a person who's listening, obviously they're still alive, advice about insurance, and like I said, I have an insurance agent coming on at 12:30, or funeral and preparing or whatever, what would that be? Because I'm seeing a spike in people calling for GoFundMe sites for, can the church give $100, $200? We even have people out there who are scamming, and I want people to notice and hear it from me. We had one lady out there with a picture of a baby saying that she had to bury her baby, asking for a donation, and saying that we were burying the baby here at True Bethel. And somebody finally stopped and called me, and I'm like, that's totally untrue. So I'm seeing where so many families of even people my age are not preparing for death. What advice would you give?
Well, the first thing I would say, Reverend, is to the day that mother and father leaves that hospital with that child, get some insurance on their child. An insurance policy on an infant coming into the world may be $2.41 a month for maybe $5,000 or $10,000 with life insurance, and that price is pretty much locked in until that child's maybe 30, 40 years old. You pay that, and you can pay that every 3 months, or 6 months, 9 months, a year, and you have insurance on your child. Now, now, if you're a smoker, one pack of cigarettes would pay for insurance for a baby for maybe 6 months.
Wow. And you need to stop anyway. So, right.
You're right about that.
Yeah. Or else, you're shortening up your life possibly. So that's what you say. From the time the baby comes, because to be very honest, I never got insurance on my children when they were young.
Neither did I.
Never even thought about it. And I think you just don't even want to think about your child dying.
Right.
So to even pay that policy, I remember they used to have the Gerber policy or something.
Yep.
And when I talk to Tony at 12:30, we'll talk about those policies because she's in the studio now. She's shaking her head. So that would be the advice, one of the biggest pieces of advice.
Exactly. I don't want to call a name of an insurance company, but Gerber is the insurance company to go with for an infant. It's like $2-3 a month for a $5,000 or $10,000 policy. And on my children, my grandchildren, and my godchildren, I've got
Really?
about 30 policies. I have a binder of insurance policies on every single last one of them.
Wow. I'm feeling really educated right now, but I'm feeling really crappy right now that, now the kids are grown and I never had an insurance policy on them. Wow.
Yep.
Well, anything else you want to add, Brian? Because I really appreciate you. I know you're at church and you stepped out of church to give me a call. Anything else you want to add on this subject? Because I think that you bring the expertise. How long you been in the business?
41 years, I think it is.
So you bring the expertise to this conversation. Like I said, I'm seeing all of the GoFundMes and all of that kind of stuff, and I'm trying to put out there to people, you gotta get insurance. You need it unless you make a decision. Let me ask you this, because there was a time you could not say cremation to an African American family. Are you seeing more cremations?
Cremations outweigh burials now. I go to the crematory more than I go to the cemetery now.
Wow. Let me tell you this. One family almost chewed my head off years ago, a couple decades ago. They didn't have any money. They wanted to do a traditional burial. They're trying to raise the money. It's weeks and weeks now that the body was sitting there. And I happened to say, did you ever think, we're not cremating? And it was, never again did I suggest cremation. But you're doing more cremation. Are they doing traditional funerals and then going to crematory?
Yeah, traditional funerals and then cremation. I myself, my particular firm, does not do too many direct cremation, which means from the place of death directly to crematory. I don't do a whole lot of that kind of business. Mm-hmm. I do more services and then cremation after the fact, or services and burials, or services and entombments, things of that nature. I don't do too many direct cremation. But I service the middle to older crowd. I've been doing this since I was 14 years old. And as I become older now, I know a lot more people in the community, and they've gotten older. So that's the more traditional families that I serve that believe in burials. Not that there's anything wrong with cremation, because it's not, but it's a personal choice. But the norm, the social norm now is more so towards cremation. Because more
I did not know that.
Yes, sir. A lot more of the younger crowds, particularly the mother and father, worked here up the hand still before they closed the funeral mothers. They had children. Their children usually moved out down south of Atlanta or California and things like that, and left their parents back here. The parents would end up being sometimes buried, or their plan was to be buried. But the children moved down to Georgia and said, well, okay, then we're going to come back, we're going to cremate mama, and then bring it back to Georgia with us and hold on a mantle for a while and then bury her. For example, I have a family coming into person that passed about a week ago. The remains are in South Carolina. They're going to come up here to Buffalo, bring the cremated remains to Buffalo, have a full church service, and then go to cemetery to bury the remains, and then go back to have a repast.
But you got to pay to bury ashes, right?
Yep.
Absolutely.
But you're not getting a full opening, right?
No. Open and closing for at the largest cemetery in the area that most people use in this area. The opening closing is $135. I'm sorry, $1,135 for the opening and closing just for ashes.
For ashes, and it's just a little opening, right?
Yep.
It's a little dig.
About 2 foot by 2 foot. Yep.
Wow. Let me just say this. If I didn't have that mausoleum and y'all had to cremate me or something happened, I would have it. Take those ashes to Florida and spread them. Don't bury.
Yeah, just.
But you are seeing people bury the ashes. I thought
every
people
week.
wanted to keep them or have little necklaces made or all that kind of stuff.
I do
Wow.
it 2 or 3 times a week. Matter of fact, this is a family that walked in my office just 20 minutes ago. They bought 17 urns.
17
So they
urns.
can sprinkle the ashes amongst the family.
One person.
Oh,
And-
so that means 17 people can have a portion of
Exactly.
the ashes. I got that. But I didn't know you could pay for to bury an urn.
My grandparents.
Yep.
My grandparents are buried in a military cemetery that allowed them to double stack the boxes.
Yeah.
For the cremation.
Wow, Brian, you have really, really educated us today, and I appreciate your time. And thank you again, one of our sponsors, Brian K. Lewis. Thanks, Brian.
You're very welcome. Have a good day.
All right. Listen, did you ever see Meet the Parents? Yeah.
Yes.
I thought they just left them up on the man. I mean, I know people who have got necklaces.
Yep.
I didn't realize people pay big money.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money.
Oh, absolutely.
Wow. Well, listen, I've got to get ready to pay the bills. When I come back, I'm going to be talking to an insurance agent that looks like me, has my skin color, and is doing very well in the business. Her and her daughter are now in business together. Her daughter works with her, and we're going to be talking about life insurance and what's best for us, whole life, term life. And I'm going to tell you a story about how high my insurance went up a couple months ago. We're going over to the station. We're going to pay the bills in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
When it comes to something as personal as your clothes, you need to deal with somebody you can trust. That's why so many people turn to Hobson's Dry Cleaning, conveniently located in the heart of the community at 874 East Delavan at the corner of Wyoming.
When you take your clothes to Hobson's, you can trust that they'll be ready on time.
You can trust that your whites will be white.
You can trust that you'll always get a fair price and service with a smile.
You can even trust that you won't have to get out of your car if you don't want to. Hobson's has a drive-through window for your convenience.
Trust is what it's all about at Hobson's Dry Cleaning.
Hobson's Dry Cleaning, your one-stop dry cleaners serving the community for over 30 years at 874 East Delavan at the corner of Wyoming. Call 891-8298. That's 891-8298.
Brian K. Lewis Funeral Home has 3 locations to serve you in Buffalo. 347 Peckham, 2258 Bailey Avenue, and Providence Memorial Chapel at 1275 Sycamore. Brian K. Lewis Funeral Homes offers traditional services, and they have services for all faiths. And at Brian K. Lewis Funeral Homes, they have air-conditioned parlors and chapels. Financing is available, as is limousine service. At those difficult moments in your life, Brian K. Lewis Funeral Homes is available where you are with counseling services. Call toll-free 877-885-7734. That's 877-885-7734. Or locally 845-5545. Brian K. Lewis Funeral Homes. We are here to serve you, here to serve this present age. Call today, toll-free 877-885-7734. Or email info@brianklewisfuneralhome.com.
All right, so we're back, and I have introduce yourself, your firm. You know, I know it. We honored you, and I always got you in the back hall. Tell them who you are.
Tony Dubois or Tony Dubois. Certainly a pleasure to be here. I appreciate the opportunity to come and share. I have my agency on Main Street, 1439, and we do protection, you know, as far as life insurance and other things too. And we're here to help people get information.
Are our people, and especially locally, and I'm talking about African Americans, are they getting policies?
Yes, somewhat. A lot of times, yeah. It depends. You know, unfortunately, a lot of times people call when something's happened. When they get a diagnosis or they're worried about something.
Okay, let's talk about that. So
Okay.
when they call after they have been diagnosed with something that they feel may be fatal,
Yes.
Are you able to find them a policy then?
Well, it depends, and that's the challenge. If you're 50 to 75, you can get what's called a guaranteed issue policy, where they don't ask you any medical questions.
So that's real.
That's real. And you see it on TV.
I see it on TV, but I'm
Yes.
like, that's not real.
But it may
It's
not
gonna-
be as cheap as they make it sound, but that's that kind of policy. But if you're younger than that, if you're age 0 to like 49 and you have health problems, there's a good chance you can't get insurance.
Okay,
So that's why it's so important to get it while your health is good.
yeah,
and
because
why you're as young
it
as
changes. So let's talk about, because you're on Main Street,
Right.
So you service all kinds of people, not just African Americans.
Exactly.
We have new Americans moving here. Do they get insurance? I want to be
Not
real.
so much. And my office is very diverse.
Right.
I mean, like, we're doing sign language and everything,
Yeah.
trying to communicate with people.
Wow.
And very seldom, mostly are running auto. But a lot of them, like some religions, they bury people in 2 or 3 days.
Right.
And they don't have a need for it.
But in some communities, insurance is more than about burial, correct?
Yes.
Or some cultures.
Yes, it is.
What is it about for other cultures?
Well, you know, people, they want to make sure that they're looked upon in a good light. They have an image that they're trying to hold.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like, especially older black folks, they were really concerned about making sure they get put away nicely.
Okay.
Okay? Or if someone dies, it's in their care, they want to make sure that's taken care of. They don't want to be asking people for money to bury somebody.
Okay.
And unfortunately, it happens so much. So many times people don't have insurance. And even on their jobs, they may work their job 20, 30 years, and then they retire, and that insurance is gone.
Yes,
And
exactly.
they don't know that's going to happen. So now they're much older. Maybe their health is not good. And there may be a lot of reasons why they can't even get life insurance.
So this is a really important point, because when I was going to say graduated from the city, when I retired from the city, I knew it's over for this policy, but I had other policies. Now I had a policy, and it must have been term.
Okay.
I was paying $50 a month,
Okay.
automatic withdrawal. And one day I look at my bank statement, and they took out $900.
Wow.
3 months in a row. So when I call them, they say, "Oh yeah, your policy changed."
Yes.
It changed from $50 to $900. I'm on, and it wasn't because of health. I
Right.
mean, I'm on no medications at all. I don't have high blood pressure, any of that. They just said it changed, and it was in the contract.
The original term expired. It was maybe 5, 10, 15, 20, or whatever year term policy. And after that year is up, the price goes up a lot.
But
and continues to
$900.
go up, and continues to go up. Yes.
So I was able to get my money back.
You were lucky.
Because I said I didn't receive anything that would notify me you don't even have to sign?
No, it automatically
Oh,
happens.
my gosh.
And it's in your original contract. When you get your policy, it's got the conditions and what happens with the rate as time goes on. And see, that's why it's so important. I mean, term can be a good policy depending on the situation, but it's a temporary situation. It's not for life.
Now, let's take Duncan. Duncan, you how old? About 39. If Duncan comes into your place, do you tell Duncan to get life term or whole?
Well, actually, I kind of say a combination if possible. I ask, what can you comfortably afford to spend? Okay, what are you trying to do? What are you trying to protect? Is there a mortgage? If something happens to you, do you want to make sure your children can go to college? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Replace your income if something happens. If the need is minimal, then he doesn't necessarily need a term policy.
Okay.
You know what I mean? But you really want to lock in with with whole life, whole life or universal, you want to lock in because once you have that, the price does not change.
Right.
So you want some coverage like that for the future. But if your need is high for a certain length of time, then you can have an additional term policy, like in his instance.
I'm going to go to Facebook. A lot of people, there's a lot of conversation here. Jen Woodward, Ronnie and I have life insurance since we were in our 20s to present. Eva Dole, greetings as a senior. I've prepared for my end of life with all insurance in place and a will because I own a lot of property. I want to make sure that my property goes where I want it to go. Sandra King says, make sure you check into the policy through your job, about your job. Same thing you just talked about. Madeline Scott said, I had it on my kids when they were kids. They did a certain policy. And as grown adults, I passed it to them. All my grands were insured since birth. I really believe in being prepared. Talk to me about this passing it on. What is this?
Well, it's a whole life policy.
Oh, okay, so that's a
First
whole
of
life.
all,
Okay.
definitely whole life. There's also a universal policy, which is like whole life, but it's normally cheaper in the cost per thousand for the insurance.
Okay.
And it allows you to accumulate more cash value than a traditional whole life policy does, and you can do more with it. It's got a lot of extra benefits on it. Like if you became disabled, it may give you money. You know, that you can get the majority of the face amount of that policy as the person paying. It's
Okay.
got a lot of nice benefits to those universal policies. But a policy is meant to last you for life, you know what I mean? And depending on the type, it could get to be paid up after a certain length of time, 15, 20 years or whatever. That policy can be paid up and you have that coverage. So when you die, it's just going to be there and you stop paying. So that's an option.
See, I know that is one I have because I'm still paying my life insurance.
Yes, but it might have been an option for you to change that if you wanted to.
Wow. So, I mean, when I say education, this has been a day of education, and at this age, I should have known all that. But what woke me up was when they started taking $900 out of my check. And before I turned, how old am I, 59? About 55, I got another policy. Okay. And I did have to do health, and I was fine. So they came to the house, they did everything that they had to do. And I added another policy that was, I believe it's a whole life.
Should be.
And right. So I as I got older though, what I found is when I had a review of my policy, what I thought was big money 20 years ago, it was nothing now. Yeah. So I had to raise that and pay it. So I pay a lot for insurance every month, but I want to make sure, my children, that do something so that my grandkids or whatever. But now I'm thinking about this children. Now, another company was mentioned earlier, but your company will insure a child.
Yes, I'm a broker, so I sell with a lot of different companies. We can write age 14 days to age 85.
So when you talk about being a broker, that means you're working with all kinds of insurance
Yes.
companies. So out there, folks, listen. A broker you go to and you can look at all kinds of products
Yes.
To be able to offer to a person a difference of just an agent who may be working for a particular agency.
Yes.
So when they come to Dubois, I love when you say it like that. When they come to Tony Dubois, you're looking at all different types
Absolutely. I'm
of companies.
shopping around because I want to make sure, because certain companies underwrite differently.
Okay.
Like there may be a condition like, say, sleep apnea, for example. Maybe one company won't take it, but another one might.
Sleep apnea affects
Possibly.
a policy.
Oh, absolutely. It's all about your health. It also could be like say somebody went to jail for a felony. The insurance company may not want to take them. Or maybe a really bad driving record, like drunk driving, things like that.
I didn't
Those
realize
are
that.
uninsurable, yes.
Mark, we were talking, and I think you got it during the break. We were talking about your grandmother who got you a policy.
Yes.
Well, everybody a policy.
Everybody.
When she passed, did you all keep your policies up?
No, we let the policies go because honestly, we had no idea. Like, I think it was under like Global Life or something. Okay. But yeah, I mean, because she kept everything to herself. So I was 18, 19, so I had no idea like who to call, keep it up going. My uncle came in, kind of swooped up all the bills. So maybe he kept policies going, but he was the one that was kind of like, yeah, like she had one on all of us, but nothing on herself. But yeah, we had no information to keep policy. I was never given information to keep policies going.
How important or how often do you see that?
Oh my goodness, it's critical. The thing is, and a lot of times I talk to people about, because I've been doing life insurance a good 30 years, and people have policies and they'll say, you know, I had this policy for years and years, and then I had to cash it in. But see, they didn't necessarily have to cash it in. They could have taken a loan or taken money out of the policy and still had the policy.
Oh,
really?
Wow. Yes, and it's
See,
so
I've never
sad.
borrowed off insurance, so I
Yeah,
don't
but
know.
a lot of people just cashed them in and they didn't have to do that. And it's so sad because, you know, they paid for years and years, you know, sacrificed.
Yeah.
And then they could have had other options and still had the policy.
So they could have
They could have
possibly.
kept the policy, very possibly, paid on the loan, which could have been like $10, $20, $30 a year. It could be like minimal. And they don't even have to pay back the money, just the interest on the loan.
wow. I didn't know that.
We've got to educate our people, and that's what we're doing right now. Amber Bowling says, I got life insurance policy for my son at the age of 11 years old, locked in. He's 28 years old today, or this now. So at 28, the policy has to be a different amount, right, than from when he was 11.
No, it locked in at that age. So he got an adult policy at a child's price.
So she had to be paying more than $2.
Well, it depends on the face. How much did she say? Did she say how much?
No, she didn't say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Say, well, Globe, for example, does $25,000.
Okay.
And it may be like $10 a month for $25,000.
Okay.
And so that cost at that age, if you compare that to 20s or 30s, it would be double the price. But because it locked in, he could be 50 and still be paying that, you know, $10 for the price. Because it locked in at the age he was when it was bought.
So that's important questions to ask when you're coming to a broker. Well, I mean, and probably the broker, you would ask a lot of these questions that we just really don't know about. Right. I want to give a plug for your agency because I know there are people who are watching, and I appreciate you coming down at the last minute. Tell the phone number of the agency, location of the agency.
Okay, thank you. Tony Dubois Agency, 1439 Main Street. My phone number is 716-931-5200. If somebody calls me, I can do a quote over the phone. I did go to a senior citizen place yesterday to write this lady, and just nice to get out, too, because sometimes people are not able to.
Go ahead. A senior citizen's place.
Yes.
So somebody over the age of what?
Well, she was 80-ish.
And she was getting a policy?
Yes. I go to 80, 85, depending on the health. And it's so funny because back in the day, I'd go to a house. I used to go to houses a lot. And I'd move around, and I'd be making noise moving. And these older people didn't make no noise. They'd be like all spry and good health and all that. A lot of
You
times.
wrote somebody 80-something years old yesterday.
Yes.
What kind of
Whole life. It
a
has
whole
to be
life.
whole life. It has to be whole life, yeah.
Wow.
And a lot of times they have good health.
Wowee. I didn't even think you could get a policy.
Age 85. And a little bit of something is better than a lot of nothing. If you have some insurance, they could work with it as opposed to none.
Well, you got people in here right now. Don Trotter, she said, I'm so happy I have insurance with my diagnosis. And she says life insurance. And she says, Tony, I need to call you for my grand's life insurance. And that's why we have, I wanted to talk about these things because we just see so many people, and especially here, we do so many homegoings and celebrations, and I see families who don't know their family members have insurance.
Yeah.
And there's this mad scramble to find out. That's why I asked Brian the question, is there a clearinghouse? You just put in their Social Security number and it pops up, and there's not.
Yeah, there's not. You can just check their checking accounts and bills and paperwork like that. There's no way to really, because it's confidential information. But people need to share.
Yeah.
Yes,
know,
that's big.
They really do.
That's big.
And, people going at all ages.
Oh, you're her broker, she says. She says she's amazing. She's my broker. They want you to repeat your information again,
Sure.
Sandra King.
1439 Main Street, near Glenwood, near the Oak Room.
Okay, that's
Yes,
better. Yeah,
right near Oak Room.
You gotta give a spot so that you ride
by the
past.
Oak Room, right
Okay.
next door to that big gray building. And our number is 716-931-5200.
Dunk, you got any questions or something you want to add to this?
No.
Okay.
I was
He is. I'm just soaking it in. What were you about to
so
say?
I was just getting ready to say, and I know we've done a lot of end of life in this conversation, but I think Tony, I think it's important to even talk about how this creates that inheritance for the future generations,
Yes.
because this is why a lot of our community does suffer, because there is no resources left for those that are remaining. Whether because Big Mama passes, nobody wants the house. So then now you're selling the house for $20,000 just to get it off your plate. But then now you got 8 people trying to break up $20,000 instead of figuring out, well, there was a policy for $400,000. Now we can pay for our kids to go to college and keep some generational success after someone transitions. So I think that's also huge to add to the conversation, that inheritance piece leaving for a future generation.
It really is. And sometimes people want to self-insure. And why do that?
Yeah.
And I try to get them to understand the little bit of money that you put into a policy, the policy's got to pay those thousands of dollars when something happens. Once that policy is approved, and especially after that 2 years, it's got to pay that face amount. So why would you self-insure? You could play with your money and use the insurance company's money.
Absolutely. I wouldn't self-insure because I ain't got enough to self-insure. Kids would be like, this all this dude left me.
They'd be mad, huh?
Put up with all this stuff. I didn't put up with him being elected official, pastor, and all
kinda
this. And
stuff.
now
He left me $30.
left me $30.
Yeah, but it's critical. And so many young people have conditions now that make them uninsurable.
So let's talk about that because I'm not at liberty. Don said it about a diagnosis. Is there a diagnosis that you say nobody's going to insure?
Well, it used to be
That
back-
would, or I should say that it would be very difficult to insure.
Okay, sickle cell,
Really?
lupus,
It's
the
difficult to
internal
insure.
lupus, not the skin lupus, but
Okay.
the internal one. Heart attack, stroke, cancer, any of those things in the last 5 to 7 years is hard to insure. DWIs and stuff, the felons, stuff like that, they don't want to cover them. If you high
Wow.
risk, they don't want to cover you.
But if you have a felony record, but you've been out for 20 years,
That would be okay.
That's
as long
okay.
as it's over 10 years.
so over 10 years, that's
Yeah.
a key. Have you found insurance companies that will, but it's just very high?
Most of them are saying no under 10 years.
No under 10 years. So this is real important information to know. What about HIV, AIDS, insurable?
Well, it depends too on the age, because remember the 50 to 75, you can get it regardless.
Okay.
The younger, a lot of times, a lot of young people call me and they are not able to get insurance. But an option is to have a universal policy on a young person like a child. And sometimes you can overfund those policies. So as money's accumulating in there, they could use that to help bury them should something happen. That's an option for those uninsurables.
Never heard of this in my life. So Don says, I can tell. Don is an ambassador for HIV Stops with Me. She's on Billboard. I am so proud of her, of being so transparent, so open, and helping, I believe, tens of thousands of people to avoid the disease. But she has a policy. She says on here, or else I would have never said it.
Right.
She just said, you can tell. So it's not impossible to get insurance,
Right.
depending on the state.
Depending on the companies
Yeah.
and stuff.
Wow.
And how long it's been.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the longer, the
Yeah.
better that you've
Yeah.
lived with it.
Yeah, even some bipolar conditions, sometimes some companies didn't want to take. Just
Really?
different conditions, yes. So that's why it's so important to get it while you're young and while you're healthy before stuff happens.
Because something's going to happen.
Yes.
So go do it. I mean, I was surprised because I had sarcoidosis and have lost half of my lung. I was very surprised to get the rate that I did and to pass. But my sarcoidosis was so far behind, and I had already been following up on my appointments, no new tumors, no new problems. But I was very surprised. I just did it like, they ain't going to insure me. That's what I thought. But I think those who are listening, who have no conditions now, go do it now,
Please.
because life changes.
Yes, it does.
Life changes. I mean, when I found out, I didn't even know I had sleep apnea until got a new pulmonologist, and he just looked at me and said, "You snore," and I was like, "What?" And he said, because of my skull, he could tell.
Really?
By looking at, and he showed me and had me do the eye.
Wow.
And he said, I'm going to show you this chart. And and then he said, and your children snore. He said, do your children look like you? And I said, yes. He said, they do too. Wow. I called my daughter and she said, yes. Called the other one. Yeah, they both. So it's unbelievable. And those who have the facial structure, he just called it out. I have a great pulmonologist. Hope he lives forever as long as I'm alive, because he's just helped me so much. But I didn't know that things like a sleep apnea, all those things could change whether you're insurable. I'm gonna have to come over and review my policies with you so that if I need to add it up. So here's a question. So if a person out there has several policies and they want to know, is this the right product? Should I be? So would you review with them?
Absolutely. We review policies because a lot of times people don't know what they have. They have no clue. And we could even call the company with them to get more information if they want. Absolutely.
This is really, really important. And I'm so glad that you could find a little time to get over here, because we always ask you to come into this is your church, but come into the hallway. Right. When we have you in the hallway, do people stop?
Sometimes, but they don't follow up.
Yeah. So they'll get the information, but then don't come in the office.
Yeah. And we don't have time to stalk people because we're really kind of busy.
Yeah.
But we just want people to be okay.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
So the business is going well.
Thank God, yes.
I'm really during COVID, how was business?
Good.
Really?
We had our doors locked, but people were still coming in and everything.
Yeah.
But it's a different world. Insurance is high. Everything is high now, higher than it was.
Yeah.
And people need to keep that in mind. It costs more to bury people.
Yeah.
Everything just costs more money today.
Yeah. So that's why I think it's so important. If you are healthy, if you a Duncan Kirkwood, if you a Mark Pope, do it while you are healthy. Get in there, pay that little money. A healthy, and we're just talking ballpark.
Right.
A healthy 40-year-old. For $500,000 in insurance, what ballpark?
I'm not sure.
You're not sure?
They'd have to call me, and I'd have to shop it around.
Is 40 getting older?
Absolutely. There's bands, 30, 40, 50.
I didn't know that either.
Absolutely.
So if you're in your 30s, go get insurance.
Yes, or a little lower.
Right, or lower. And to those of you who are listening who may have children who are in their 30s, encourage them, or you're going to be doing a GoFundMe.
Can I say something else?
Absolutely.
Too, a lot of times these young folks have money and don't know what to do with it. If they have a universal policy, they can put additional money into it. So if they want to get money to fund a business or buy a car or whatever, later they can do
universal.
Universal life
So let's
policy.
say I get my taxes back.
Okay.
And I've got $10,000 in taxes. I want to do something with $2,000. I can come to you, and if I qualify, get a universal policy that I can borrow against later?
Borrow or withdraw. And have that money accumulate tax deferred, and people have access to that money.
So it's almost,
Go ahead.
I was getting ready to say, so it's almost like my deferred comp with the city of Buffalo. So it's some pre-tax money that you can set aside, almost like, because how it had to be explained to me, it's almost like your 401k, but it's a whole different bank than your 401k.
Right.
But it's almost.
And there's no penalties.
There's no penalties. Right.
So there's no penalties and no taxes on it?
Well, you pay taxes on the growth.
Right.
Okay.
Taxes on the growth. But it's a good way to be accumulating money tax deferred that no one even knows you have, that you have access to, should you want to do something down the road. It's just a good another option for young people to be saving and accumulating money.
And I just knew that I was pretty smart on all this. I got all these policies. They probably ain't paying zero money. I gotta come in and have a review. I gotta make an appointment. I mean
you gonna
that.
cash out, it'll all be $1,000.
These commercials that I just saw one this morning on network about Oh no, that's mortgage. No, that's not insurance. But they have some where they talk about, and I think you just made it plain that that's real about that 50 to 70. How old?
75.
To 75, and the fact that you just wrote somebody 80.
Now, hers was effective right away because she has good health. But the 50 to 75 is for people that have major health problems, heart attack, stroke, kidney failure, liver
You
disease,
still can
and
insure
those
it.
kinds of things. Yeah, 50 to 75. And a lot of times people think they don't want it, but God's the only one that determines how long you're going to live.
Yeah,
There's people
yeah.
that can live past that 2 years, and it's going to pay that face amount.
But that 80-year-old was insured right away.
Yeah, because she's health-wise good. No health problems. Thank God.
Wow. Thank God. Exactly. It's been Dubois.
Yes.
New Orleans way of saying it. I really want to tell you thank you. I want to thank Brian K. Lewis Funeral Home, and I want to thank Hobson's, the doctor of dry cleaner. This information is brought to you because of them. It's because they pay the bills here. Hobson's, the doctor of dry cleaner, 874 East Delavan. That's Hobson's, the doctor of dry cleaning. I've got to get over there. I haven't been over there in the last couple of weeks, so I got to get over there to Hobson's, 874 East Delavan, and Brian K. Lewis in your hour of need. Brian K. Lewis Funeral Homes. They'll take care of you. Go over there by the Oak Room. Easy way. Just call first. You need an appointment. Call over to, give them the agency name one last time.
Tony Dubois Agency, LLC, 1439 Main Street.
Right over by the Oak Room. So you can go get your fish fry and then stop in or do whatever you're going to do. I don't know if they do fish fry, but.
Yeah, I don't even know what time they open.
Yeah, Good Friday, everybody.
One
what you got?
One other, and I was just thinking about it. Early voting is going on for the presidential.
Oh, it already started?
Yes, for the presidential nomination. I think the actual day is Tuesday to vote. This year is very strange because we have, I think, 3 or 4 election cycles. You have this one for the presidential nominee. You have the congressional special election at the end of April. Then you have our regular city, state, and county primaries in June. So make sure you stay up to date. But the early voting is still going on.
I think people are going to get voter fatigue.
Yes,
I really
they will.
do. I think they get voter fatigue, and that's unfortunate. So we got to keep on educating the public about that. Listen, until next week, power to the people.